Welcome to the deep dive. Ready to dive into something really practical? Today we're taking a look at Glin Bayley's The Negotiation Playbook.
Ooh, yeah, this is one of those books that you'll keep going back to again and again.
And Glin's style. So relatable, so down to earth, she starts by totally flipping the script on how we usually think about negotiation.
Right, like most people think negotiation and they picture like suits in a boardroom hammering out some huge deal.
Exactly. But Glin shows us that it's so much more than that. It's happening all around us every single day.
Like when you're trying to decide where to go for dinner.
Or convincing your kids to go to bed on time.
Seriously, those are prime examples of negotiation in action, and the book helps you see those everyday interactions as like mini training grounds for upping your negotiation game.
And she tackles something that I think everyone struggles with, that inner voice, the one that whispers all those doubts and anxieties, especially when we're about to negotiate something important.
Oh, that pesky voice. It can totally sabotage us before we even start.
Glin shares this story about one of her clients who kept calling their own business a mom-and-pop operation. And it's like, whoa, that's some serious self-deprecating talk right there.
And it's so common we downplay our own value without even realizing it. It's like we're afraid to own our accomplishments.
It makes you wonder, where does that come from?
Glyn says it's this fear of being seen as, I don't know, arrogant or pushy, but it actually weakens our position.
Right, it's like we're pre-negotiating ourselves down before the game even starts.
Exactly. And Glyn gives us practical tips for turning that negative voice into an ally. She helps us recognize our worth and use language that reflects that.
It's all about shifting that mindset from self-doubt to self-assurance.
And that's a game changer.
One of the coolest things about the book is how Glin emphasizes that negotiation isn't about winners and losers.
It's not a zero-sum game.
There's this story she tells about Mel, this entrepreneur who was all about collaboration. She truly believed in win-win situations.
Which is awesome. But then she found herself in this situation where she had to be more assertive, to protect her business.
It's a great reminder that we need to be able to adapt our style to the situation. Sometimes collaboration is the way to go.
But other times, you got to stand your ground and advocate for what you need.
And to help us figure out how to navigate all of this, Glin introduces these 5 negotiator archetypes. She calls them the general, the diplomat, the dealer, the accommodator, and the avoider.
And they're so spot on. It's like she's peering into your soul.
Right. Which one are you? Are you the type who charges in like a general, ready to take charge?
Or maybe you're more of a diplomat, always seeking harmony and compromise.
Or perhaps you're a smooth-talking dealer, working those angles to find a deal that benefits everyone.
And then there are the accommodators, putting relationships first, even if it means sacrificing a bit of their own needs.
And of course, we can't forget the avoiders, those who would rather run and hide than face a negotiation head-on.
Oh yeah, we all know a few avoiders. But here's the thing. Glyn doesn't just label us. She gives us this awesome framework called the value method.
Okay, I am all about frameworks that actually work. Tell me more about this value method.
It's a 5-step process. Identify, analyze, leverage, embrace discomfort, and execute. And we're going to be diving deep into each of these steps in a future series, so stay tuned.
I can't wait. This already sounds like a total game changer. But before we move on, I got to ask you about this whole fairness thing that Glin brings up.
Yeah, the fairness myth. It's a really thought-provoking concept.
She uses this brilliant analogy about winning a lottery ticket and having to share it with a friend.
And suddenly this seemingly simple idea of fairness gets super complicated, right? Like how much do you share? What's fair to you might not feel fair to the other person.
Totally. It highlights how subjective fairness is. We all have our own perspectives and priorities.
And Gillen's point is that instead of getting hung up on this idea of absolute fairness, we should focus on creating value that feels mutually beneficial.
Expanding the pie, not just dividing it up.
Exactly. And speaking of pie, let's talk about timing. Because timing is everything in negotiation.
So true. But how do we know when the right time to negotiate is?
Glyn has this amazing story about a company that got a much better deal with a supplier simply because they said they weren't in a rush.
Because sometimes patience pays off.
Good time. It's about understanding the power dynamics, knowing when to push and when to hold back.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. Negotiation is like a strategic dance, you know? And Glin gives us the moves.
For sure. And she also talks about how the language we use can make or break a negotiation. She has this great saying, loose language leaks value.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. We've all been guilty of using those wishy-washy phrases like, ideally I would like, or I'm hoping to.
And those phrases just scream uncertainty.
It's like we're giving away our power before we even start.
Exactly. Glynn encourages us to use tight language instead, language that's clear, concise, and leaves no room for misinterpretation.
It's about being assertive without being aggressive.
And you know what else can be surprisingly powerful? Silence.
Silence, really. That's always felt so awkward to me.
I know, right? But Glynn explains how silence can actually create discomfort for the other party, leading them to reveal more than they intended.
It's like a strategic pause that allows the other person to fill the space.
Exactly. It can give you time to gather your thoughts, assess the situation, and project an air of confidence and control.
This is fascinating. I'm already seeing how these seemingly simple techniques can make a huge difference in our negotiations.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Glynn's book is packed with so much valuable wisdom.
Well, we've only just begun to scratch the surface of Glin Bayley's The Negotiation Playbook.
We've explored how negotiation is woven into our daily lives, the importance of silencing that pesky inner voice, the adaptability of negotiation styles, the 5 negotiator archetypes, the power of the value method, the myth of fairness, the strategic use of timing, the impact of language, and the unexpected power of silence.
And we're just getting started.
Stay tuned for our upcoming series where we'll unpack each of those concepts in more detail, giving you practical tips and real-life examples to help you become a master negotiator.
So if you're ready to level up your negotiation skills, you won't want to miss it.
Remember that value method we were talking about? That 5-step framework: identify, analyze, leverage, embrace discomfort, and execute. It's like the backbone of the whole book.
It sounds super structured, and I love that. Where do we even begin with a framework like that?
Well, it all starts with identify.
Okay, identify what? The problem.
Well, sort of. It's about going deeper than just what we want on the surface. It's about uncovering the real value for both you and the other person you're negotiating with.
So it's like instead of just saying, I want a raise, it's figuring out why that raise is so important.
Yeah. Like, is it about financial security? Is it about feeling valued by your company? Or maybe it's about having more freedom to travel?
And I guess it's also about understanding what the other person values too, right?
Absolutely. Like, if you're negotiating that raise with your boss, maybe they're not just worried about the budget. Maybe they're also looking for someone who can take on more responsibility or who's really committed to the company's long-term goals.
So it's about seeing the bigger picture on both sides.
Exactly. And once you've identified all those values, you move on to analyze.
Okay, so we've got our detective hats on. We've gathered all the clues about what everyone values. Now what?
Now we put on our analyst hats and we start looking at the situation from multiple perspectives.
So not just my own point of view.
Right. Glynn talks about looking through 3 different lenses: your own perspective, the other party's perspective, and then, this is important, an objective lens.
Oh, I like that. The objective lens. It's like taking a step back from the whole thing.
Exactly. It helps you avoid getting caught up in your own emotions or biases. You can see the situation more clearly and make more strategic decisions.
Okay, I'm seeing how this is all starting to come together. So we've identified values, we've analyzed the situation. What's next?
Next comes the fun part: leverage.
Leverage. Ooh, that sounds powerful. Tell me more about that.
It's all about recognizing your strengths in a negotiation. What do you bring to the table that the other side needs or wants? Do you have unique skills, valuable connections, inside knowledge?
So if I'm the only one who can do a certain job, that gives me leverage.
Exactly. But Glynn makes it very clear that leverage isn't about being manipulative or using force.
Yeah, that makes sense. It shouldn't be about billing people into getting what you want.
Right. It's about understanding the power dynamics and using your strengths ethically to create a win-win situation. Glynn makes a really important distinction between power and force.
What's the difference?
Well, power is constructive. It's about influence, persuasion, and creating positive change. Force, on the other hand, is destructive. It's about coercion and control.
So it's like the difference between leading and dictating.
Exactly. Glynn advocates for what she calls compassionate power. It's about using your influence to help others and make the world a better place.
Okay, I am loving this. Compassionate power. It's like a superhero's secret weapon.
Totally. And then we come to the step that might make some people squirm a little: embrace discomfort.
Ooh, yeah, that one sounds a little intimidating. Why do we have to embrace discomfort? Can't we just avoid it?
We can try, but Glynn argues that avoiding discomfort often means settling for less than we deserve.
So it's about pushing past those feelings of fear or uncertainty.
Exactly, because on the other side of that discomfort is where the real growth happens.
It's like that saying, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes. And Glynn gives us some really helpful tips for managing that discomfort. Things like recognizing that it's temporary, using controlled breathing techniques, and even paying attention to your body language.
So it's about being mindful of those feelings and not letting them control us. And how does language play into all of this?
Language is huge EE. Glynn is a big advocate for using what she calls tight language. It's about being clear, concise, and avoiding any ambiguity.
So no more wishy-washy phrases like, I'm hoping to, or ideally I would like.
Right. Those phrases weaken your position because they suggest you're not really sure what you want or that you're willing to settle for less.
It's about projecting confidence and knowing your worth.
Exactly. And then, finally, we come to execute. This is where all that preparation and strategizing pays off.
It's showtime.
Exactly. Execution is about bringing your A game to the negotiation. Glynn talks about the importance of priming the other party beforehand. Maybe you have a pre-meeting to build rapport, or you share some materials that showcase your expertise.
It's about setting the stage for a successful outcome.
Right, and during the negotiation itself, active listening is crucial. Really paying attention to what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
So it's not just about waiting for your turn to talk. It's about truly engaging with the other person and understanding their perspective.
Exactly. And all of this leads to Glynn's ultimate goal, which is to help us become value negotiators. But she takes it a step further and introduces these 6 core values, which she calls the 6 C's, that are essential for becoming a value negotiator.
Okay, I'm intrigued. 6 C's. Lay it on me. What are they?
Well, the first C is creativity. Glynn talks about how important it is to be able to think outside the box, to come up with creative solutions that benefit everyone involved.
So it's not just about sticking to the traditional rules of negotiation. It's about being innovative and finding new ways to create value.
Right. And Glynn busts some myths about creativity, like that it's only for artists or that it has to be complicated. She argues that creativity can actually lead to simpler, more effective solutions. And that brings us to the second C, connection.
Connection. That makes sense. Relationships are so important in any negotiation.
Right. Absolutely. Gwyn defines connection as valuing relationships over transactions. It's about building rapport, fostering trust, and recognizing that we're all human beings at the end of the day.
So it's about seeing the person across the table as a partner, not an opponent.
Exactly. And the third C is curiosity. Glynn encourages us to approach negotiations with a sense of wonder and a willingness to learn.
I love that. Curiosity is all about asking questions, exploring different perspectives, and being open to new possibilities.
Exactly. She says it's okay to not have all the answers as long as you're asking the right questions. And then we come to the fourth C, compassion. This one's really powerful.
Compassion in negotiation. What does that look like?
Glynn describes it as the ability to understand and address the real needs of others. It's about putting yourself in the other person's shoes and seeing the world through their eyes.
So it's about empathy and recognizing that everyone is going through their own stuff.
Exactly. And then we have the fifth C, which is care.
Care. How does care fit into the world of negotiation?
It's all about finding that balance between getting good results and building strong relationships. It's about recognizing that the relationship matters, even after the negotiation is over.
So it's not just about winning at all costs. It's about approaching the negotiation with integrity and respect for the other person.
Exactly. And finally, we have the sixth C contribution. Glynn emphasizes that negotiation isn't just about personal gain. It's also an opportunity to make a positive impact on the world around us.
That's a beautiful thought. So it's about thinking bigger picture and considering how our actions can benefit others.
Yes, she says, real change is created by those who dare to contribute, not just participate. It's about using our negotiation skills to make a difference.
I love that. So these 6 C's, creativity, connection, curiosity, compassion, care, and contribution, they're all part of becoming a value negotiator.
Absolutely. And Glynn provides a ton of practical advice and real-life stories to help us develop these values and integrate them into our negotiation style.
I'm sensing a theme here. It sounds like becoming a value negotiator is about so much more than just getting what you want.
Right.
It's about approaching negotiation with integrity, empathy, and a real desire to create value for everyone involved.
You got it. It's about shifting from a transactional mindset to a transformative one. Glynn believes that negotiation can be a force for good in the world.
I'm already feeling inspired, but I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to explore in the negotiation playbook.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we're going to continue our deep dive into Glin's brilliant book in our next episode. We'll delve deeper into specific strategies and techniques, share more compelling stories, and give you actionable insights that you can use in your own life.
It's amazing how these 6 C's really tie everything together.
Yeah.
It's like Glenn's showing us that being a value negotiator, it's not just about techniques and tactics, it's about a whole mindset.
Right. It's about shifting from like a me versus you mentality to a let's solve this together approach.
And the cool thing is Glenn doesn't just tell us to do this. She actually shows us how with all these real-world examples.
Well, yeah, like that story about Darcy, the general manager who had that conflict with a big retail customer.
Oh, yeah, Darcy's story. It's like a masterclass on how to stay calm under pressure.
Totally. Darcy could have just given in to the customer's demands, just to avoid a confrontation.
Yeah.
She didn't.
She took a deep breath and thought strategically.
Exactly. She took the time to really understand the customer's perspective, figure out where her company had leverage, and then come up with some creative solutions.
And it totally paid off.
Right, big time. Not only did she save her company a bunch of money, but she also managed to maintain a good relationship with the customer.
It's like she turned a potential disaster into a win-win.
It's a perfect example of how those 6 C's can really make a difference. Creativity helps us think outside the box. Connection helps us build trust. Curiosity helps us ask the right questions. Compassion helps us see things from the other person's point of view. Care reminds us that relationships matter, and contribution, well, that's all about making a positive impact.
It's like Gulen's giving us a toolkit for not just becoming better negotiators, but better people, too.
And at the end of the book, she leaves us with this really powerful question. She asks, will you choose to be the value negotiator?
It's like a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a call to action to use our negotiation skills to make a difference in the world.
To create more win-win situations where everyone benefits.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Glin Bayley's The Negotiation Playbook. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super inspired. It's like a whole new way of looking at negotiation.
Me too. And I think the best part is that it's also practical. Glin gives us real strategies that we can start using right away in our own lives.
So if you're ready to level up your negotiation game and maybe even become a little bit of a better human being along the way, I highly recommend checking out the Negotiation Playbook.
And don't forget to join us for our upcoming series, where we'll be diving even deeper into the world of negotiation. We'll explore those 5 negotiator archetypes, unpack the value methods step by step, and share even more practical tips and real-world examples to help you become a master negotiator.
Until then, happy negotiating.